Hello. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you're doing fantastic wherever you are in the world. Today I'm watching this video about freedom of movement. I heard about this, in that video about the EU, which I totally embarrassed myself not knowing like what countries were in the EU and stuff from a couple days ago. Anyway, freedom of movement. I hear that's like a freedom that Europeans have that Americans don't or something. It reminds me of I don't know, what comes to mind is DUI stops. Do you guys have DUI checkpoints in Europe? Are those legal? Maybe they're not under this. I don't know. Because they're questionable here in America. Because of they're stopping you and searching you without any suspicion or anything. They're just stopping you. Anyway, that's just what it reminded me of. Freedom of movement. I think it might have something to do with traveling between countries. I don't know. Let's see. It's really hard to travel between countries here in America. I'll tell you that much. Like as far as Canada and Mexico. What does freedom of movement mean? Oh yeah. Can I say? It's by the Migrants' Rights Network. Okay. So it must have something to do with moving between countries.
Free movement has profoundly shaped my life. When I was 18 and I found the things I wanted to study were in
the European Union.
Italy and in the UK, eventually I was able to pursue that. When then in London I met a person I fell in love with, I was able to pursue him when I found out he lived in Amsterdam. When we found the things we wanted to work with in London, we were both able to come and live here. So it's everything, I would say, my current family, my friendships, my job, my education are consequences of me being able to enjoy the freedom of movement.
So, I don't know, I'm having to read between the lines here, but it must be some kind of freedom you have to move between countries, which seems extremely convenient, especially in a place like Europe where all the countries are super tight-knit. And within the EU, it's almost like states here in America. At least we're free to move between states. There's no hassle driving between states, which that would be extremely convenient if you live in Europe. It would be extremely inconvenient if it was anything like America, where just going to Canada or Mexico, they have to stop you. They'll search your car. They'll hassle you. Man, it's horrible.
Some years ago, only the rich and the powerful were able to freely move around and be with whoever they wanted, work whatever they wanted.
It does feel like a basic human right.
That freedom has become part of something that common people can do. So everybody can
How cool is that?
And they don't have to ask for permission. So it's that control that was there before now has disappeared, and it's about the people, really. We've gone a lot more about that democracy, the power to the people, let's say.
I think that for my generation...
Sounds awesome to me.
It is really completely natural. I think it's hard for us to imagine what it would be like if we didn't have that, if we didn't have the ability to jump on a plane and go for a city break somewhere in one of the European cities, if we didn't have the option to study in another country, if we chose to do so, and if we didn't have the ability to choose to work somewhere else and gain experience in another European country.
So it also affects as far as working. You don't even need a work visa or anything to work in a different country in the EU.
Free movement, you're able to have a lot more diverse population. You have a lot more multilingual people that can contribute to society, to the arts, to employment. You have people who are coming here who can contribute to an increasingly diverse society, diverse...
It's got to be great for the economy.
And I think that's very, very rich.
I think it's just the simple freedom to be able to go to different countries, to travel, to work, study, live.
I think the freedom of movement...
It is, the more... I don't think about this very often because I don't travel outside the U.S. Maybe I would more if it wasn't such a pain. I didn't even have a passport up until recently, so I couldn't travel even if I wanted to. And getting a passport was a pain. It took months. But I know, boomers talk about how back in their day they used to be able to just drive to Canada or Mexico and Like it was nothing, just cross the border. It's a foreign concept to me. That I'm like, really? Like, because I guess I'm young enough that just, it sounds like, really? It's kind of like getting on a plane without going through TSA. Like, really? You used to be able to just do that? It's kind of sad when you think about it like that. That in that way, someone like me is, we're not free to do that anymore. But because I was never free to do it, I don't even recognize it. There's something Orwellian about that.
Gives us security. The fact that we have Europeans
Or like A Brave New World. Do you guys know that book? It reminds me of that kind of thought.
in different European countries at the moment, and the fact that we are so intertwined gives us the security. It means that we need to work together, and it means that the governments of the various European countries must work together as well to resolve any potential problems that we have together.
We have to remember that that's why the EU was created, because we've had war in the continent for most of our history, and the fact that we have become interdependent, interconnected, that means that, and we've grown into the understanding of each other.
Yes, that's a good point. What a great peacemaking tool, because it's no longer like you no longer feel isolated, like, oh, they're the others, the people in this other country, they're others, everybody moves between them freely, so the chances of a war between countries in the EU just seems totally improbable. It would be like a civil war. That would be...
We've kind of ensured that there is not going to be war because it's not good for any of us.
Obviously, EU migrants also pay tax. They pay into the welfare system and make it richer.
There was a study that showed that...
So are some people against this? They kind of pitch this, there must be some people against the freedom of movement. Obviously, there's some people against... Like, I'm thinking about here in America. Okay, if we had this freedom and they were like, okay, you can just move between Mexico and America, yes, there would be a lot of people against that. Because there's already, millions of Mexicans coming across the border. That's a huge controversy as it is. And it's not even legal right now. So yeah, making that legal would be, wow.
For each
I can't imagine
pound 30 that EU migrants contribute in taxes, they only take in about £1 in terms of the services and so forth.
I think British people would lose the same thing that I would lose in principle, and they would lose the opportunity.
Oh. So how did Brexit affect this? Surely that must have been part of the negotiation, right? To keep the freedom of movement.
Opportunity to be able to pursue perhaps the studies that they want to pursue that happen to be somewhere else. In the same way, if they meet someone and fall in love, they might not be able to pursue that. Or they might still insist on pursuing it, but it would definitely be much more difficult.
I mean, are British people ready to give up a right?
Okay, so that's what this is about. It's in the context of Brexit.
That they've earned and that they can use if they want to. I mean, I understand not everybody necessarily wants to go and live in a different country, but they can, and their children will be able to do it. And losing such a right, which is such a great step we've taken towards that democracy, towards equality, it would be such a big mistake.
Wouldn't it be a beautiful world if we could all just move between countries without having to ask permission? If only the world was so, I don't know, what an optimistic world to look toward.
Freedom of movement
Might be
will
possible.
happen regardless of whether the UK remains in Europe or not. It will be something that will happen because it needs to happen. The UK is an international business centre. It requires the skills that European...
Because tons of people outside in different countries work in London, for example, right? So that would be a massive inconvenience, to say the least, if freedom of movement was disrupted.
Has to offer, it needs those to prosper and to be the great country that it is.
If there would be one thing I could say to the people of Britain about free movement, that would be, don't give it up. It's your right. It's about opportunities. It's your chance to have a new life anywhere else. It's your chance to meet your soulmate and be able to have a great relationship in 28 countries.
Yeah, once you get a right like that, you don't want to give it up, do you?
Just don't give up that opportunity.
You might not get it back. That was a cool video. Very eye-opening. I wonder, like this dislike ratio, there's some people who disliked it, you know? It makes me think there must be some controversy about it. I don't know. I guess I'll read a couple comments to see. At least someone doing something positive about freedom of movement. I think the lady who says she can't imagine life without freedom of movement needs to actually have perspective. Having free movement is actually not a reality for the majority of the world. Not only are borders normal, but also militarized borders are normal. Yeah. Yes. In an ideal world, I don't think militarized borders would exist, but it's probably necessary, sadly, for some parts. My current family. You can't change family. I didn't catch that. Looking at the DDR where you had to apply, I don't know what the DDR is, to be honest, for just taking a train to Poland or the Czech Republic. Trying to legislate the freedom of movement and how a person in the world gets from A to B, be it for work or leisure, is tough, and you cannot lead a person in a direction they want to go, not without reinstating a few dictators. Yeah, okay. The DDR was East Germany. Obviously, I should have known that. I've seen it referenced before. I didn't connect the dots. Pretty stupid. Thank you for watching. I think I said all I had to say. That was a cool video. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.